Imagine a defense attorney, who's also a DV aggressor, falling in love with a client who just so happens to be a very sadistic DV aggressor. And the two of them get married and then decide to plot revenge against his ex-girlfriend who's filed charges against him for all the abuse she endured. And so they murder her and her two parents. And this will happen in 2019 in this tiny town of Beggs, Oklahoma. There's like 1,300 people living there. This case is unbelievable. When you think you've heard the worst of the worst when it comes to domestic violence, this is the worst I've ever heard. Because it's the most scary outcome one can ever imagine. The guy gets an attorney who then helps him murder the person who's trying to protect herself from him. And not just her, also her parents. Okay, so the reason I'm talking about this again is because these two are going to be on trial in 2024. When I look at the court dockets, it looks like they were going to be tried together, but now they've filed motions to sever the trial, so they're probably going to be tried separately. They say this could happen in the summer of 2024, so I know we're very prepared by talking about it now, but I think because of all the dangers of online dating that I've been highlighting and DV awareness that I've been raising and all this stuff, I think the algorithm, on Google, on my alerts, served this case up to me because it contains all of those lessons. And here at Grizzly True Crime, we try to do our best to learn from every case and to share that information with as many people as possible in case it can save lives. I'm not here to storytell or, read you a bedtime story or something. We are here to deep dive cases, to learn from them, to look at documents, maps, body cams if we have them, to watch the trial to the very end. So if they are going to be streaming this trial, hopefully we'll be able to watch it together. Maybe there'll be two trials, as I say. But I just wanted to tell you the story because I'd never heard of something this crazy. And I see it's been widely covered already. I wasn't even on YouTube yet when this case happened. But it is back in the news now. There's new articles that have come out in the last week or so about these two. And I think it's all in preparation for their trial. One of them, the former attorney, just had a hearing on December 14th of 2023. So maybe that's why it's back in the news. But either way, I think it's a relevant case to look at. I hope that you will like and share with hashtag DV awareness. Please know as well, if you have been a victim of domestic violence, this case could be triggering for you. I will be sharing some details of what this guy did to his ex-girlfriend so that you can understand just how sadistic he was. Also, please remember to share the DV distress signal. It goes like this, okay? So if you teach that to your kids or to anyone at least then if they're in public and they see someone doing this, they're not going to be like, okay then. They'll actually know what it means, and they know it means call the police, ask for help, talk to a manager, do something. Don't intervene yourself. That could be very dangerous, but this would usually mean they're in distress. It's usually a distress signal for domestic violence. So it might mean that they're with an aggressor, but it could actually, it's now spilled over to many other distress scenarios, like if someone is abducted, kidnapped, in danger, met up with a date and is not feeling safe, all those types of things, you might see someone doing that, okay? So let's get into this crazy case. Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. Welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Gisela K, and as I say, buckle up because this case is one of the craziest DV cases I've ever heard. When two DV aggressors fall in love with each other, I do not know what that relationship would look like. I don't even want to know. It sounds pretty sickening, and I guess what we know is, oh damn, they end up on trial and are facing the death penalty. That's probably what happens when two DV aggressors get together. So this all started in 2017 when a lady called Tiffany Eichor met a guy called Titus II. I mean, his name, oh my word. The names in this case also wait, what? Anyway, so Titus II. She met him on Tinder. Now, if you haven't seen my serial predator live stream that we did just a few days ago, depending on when you're watching this, it is also under my Stalking Codes of Control DV Awareness playlist. Go and check that out, because there I actually share tips of how to stay safe with this online dating world. And so many cases involving domestic violence or abuse or these like serial essayists and all of this, it starts with this online dating. So not to sound like a prude, but if you want to stay safe, you got to stay ultra vigilant if you are on these platforms for online dating. So they met on Tinder. And remember, these predators, they're on there. They're fishing in the same pool you are. You're looking for the man of your dreams, while they're looking for a target to suffer at the hands of their abuse. And so that's exactly what Barry Titus II did. And no doubt, when people meet these people online, they might seem really charming, really caring. They might have these fancy-ass careers that they might not have. They might just be saying it. But anyway, they portray themselves in a certain light. They control the narrative from the very beginning. And then, once they secure the relationship, then the abuse starts. And that's exactly what happened here. And Tiffany suffered in silence for a long time. This guy would literally kick her, choke her, strangle her until she became unconscious, and then pour water all over her, and then she'd regain consciousness, and then he would strangle her again. He's very, very sadistic. She had kidney lacerations, liver lacerations, broken ribs, and all sorts of things. Yes, she eventually had to seek medical treatment, but she didn't want to press charges. And one might say, why? Because she was terrified of him. These guys are freaking scary. But in May of 2018, she decided to go and get some therapy and try to work through all of this abuse that she was suffering. And her therapist encouraged her to leave safely, to file a protective order against him and file charges against him. And she actually did that. She managed to finally say, okay, no more of this. She moved in with her parents in this tiny little town, Beggs, Oklahoma, and she got a protective order against Barry Titus and filed charges against him. And this is why he got an attorney, because he would be going to court to face the consequences of these charges. And so he got an attorney, none other than Keegan Harroz, also an Oklahoma-based attorney with a very good reputation, apparently. I don't know why now, knowing what we know now. It's amazing what a reputation she had. And she was previously an assistant public defender, and then in 2014, she opened her own practice. And so these two met. And I don't know if sparks were flying or what the hell happened, but the two of them fell in love. And he was complaining to her about this freaking ex-girlfriend who's just filing all these ridiculous charges against him, and she wasn't going to have it. So you know what she did? She literally hired a private investigator to follow Tiffany around so that she had information to use against Tiffany, and she used this to intimidate her so that she wouldn't be able to testify against Barry. And not only that, she actually used one of her clients to go to Tiffany's house where she lived with her parents and plant a little baggie of what the guy thought was methamphetamine, but it actually turned out to be powdered sugar. And she was going to, call it into the police and say, ooh, it's a drug house, better go check it out. But anyway, Tiffany found this little baggie first, called the police, and she's like, I don't know if this is the ex-boyfriend doing this or if it's like a prank or what it is, but I found this really suspicious little package under the porch. And so they tested it, and yes, they found out it was powdered sugar. And so things went on, but now, Tiffany had this protective order against him. But that's all very shady. We'll get into more detail a little later in this video, because I'm going to be reading you the entire press release from the police, which really nicely, chronologically details everything. As you know, we cover crimes in layers over here. I'm just telling you the story, and then I'm going to read you the document, and then you'll have the full picture. So the thing is, that was January of 2019, right? The planting of the powdered sugar. And then in August, the couple decided to buy AR-15 rifles and handguns and really arm themselves. And who knows, at that time, what were they plotting? Well, later it would become evident what they were plotting. On September 6th of 2019, these two idiots drove to Texas, and no doubt they checked themselves into a hotel. I say that because they say we were in Texas from the 6th to the 10th, so we couldn't have been in Beggs, Oklahoma at the time of the murders, because of course the police suspected Barry Titus immediately with this protective order and all the previous times that they'd been out there, when witnesses had called in abuse and things. For example, in 2018, Barry actually got arrested. I'm not too sure for what, but in Colorado. And Tiffany had actually driven to Colorado to bail him out and drive him home. And how did he repay her kindness? He pistol whipped her. And a witness saw it and called it in. So the police at the time, they were aware of Barry, but now even more so. But anyway, the couple says, no, we were in Texas. We went there on the 7th. So there's no doubt that they booked a hotel room. They got a room to domestic violence aggressors. And so that would be, they would have the receipts to say, see, we checked in from here to here. But the two of them did not stay there that night. They turned around and they drove back to Beggs, Oklahoma, and they drove up to Tiffany and her parents' house in the middle of the night. I'm talking 3 a.m. And when they got there, they knew about the security system that Tiffany's dad had recently installed. And the reason he did this was because one of his friends was getting really worried about Barry and his new girlfriend's behavior. And so he said, here, take my shotgun. You can literally have it at your house. But yet, Tiffany's mom said she's not allowing any weapons in the house. And what they did then was install a security system. So there was ring cam available. And that ring cam caught this car, a light-colored sedan, pulling up to the house and two people getting out of the vehicle. And then they cut the power lines and the telephone lines. And then they kicked in the front door. They went in there and shot Jack first. So, of course, that makes sense if you put yourself in their freaking shoes, which you never want to do. Take out the male, the biggest threat to them, right? So they shot him first, and then Jack's wife, Kay, ran and hid in the closet and was absolutely terrified. Can you imagine? Just the sound of someone kicking in your front door, that's already so scary at 3 a.m. But then you're hearing shots go off. Your husband is murdered. She ran, she hid in the closet. They found her. They killed her too. And then they got to Tiffany. And apparently they tortured her for some time and then murdered her. And then the two of them got in the car and left. And went back to Texas where they had a room. And I don't even want to imagine how two such abusive, sadistic people felt after this, because so often we see with this dark psychology that they get kind of like on a high. They might actually get off on this, and that's just a horrible thought. So the next day, when family couldn't get hold of Tiffany or her parents, they went over to the house and they saw the door was kicked in. They also saw there was a ball cap lying on the ground. They weren't sure what to make of all of this. They went in and discovered a horrifying scene and called the police. And the police came out and collected as much DNA evidence and picked up all the shell casings and everything that they possibly could. And so the investigation began. The police said that at least 2 different caliber weapons were used. And they could see from the footage that it appeared to be an obvious, very tall male and then someone with him. And they later learned that, yes, in fact, Keegan was married to Barry Titus. I wonder if they got married in Texas. I'm wondering, when did they get married? That I do not know. But they got married to each other. And she had a light-colored sedan, a Lexus. And so they pieced together everything. And eventually, this couple was arrested. They were actually first arrested for unlawful possession of a firearm. Why? Because her brother snitched, thank goodness, on her. Told the police, listen, they bought this AR-15 rifle recently, and he actually had the gun and handed it over to the police, which then matched the shell casings. And thank goodness, if you see something, say something, whether it's your brother or your sister or your mother, your father, whoever it is, your son, daughter, doesn't matter. This guy did the right thing. He called the police and he told them about this. And then the guy that planted the little baggie under the porch, yeah, he also spoke to police. And we're going to get into those details when I read you the police report as well. In April of 2021, the two of them were charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. And 1 year later, in 2022, it was indicated that the state would be seeking the death penalty against them. So this is going to be a death penalty case with possibly 2 trials or a joint trial, and it should be happening sometime in the summer of 2024. So now let me read you the police report. I'm going to put it here for you so that you can read along with me. You can see it's dated April 8th of 2021. Introduction: Eddie Rice, Okmulgee County Sheriff; Joe Prentice, Chief, Okmulgee Police Department; Andy Blizzard, Chief Investigator, District 25 District Attorney's Office. These gentlemen are representative members of the District 25 Violent Crime Task Force, which is a collaboration of different law enforcement agencies in both Okmulgee and McIntosh counties. As a result of the members of that task force hard work and countless man hours, we are here today to announce the filing of charges for those responsible for the triple murder that occurred on September 7th, 2019 in rural Beggs. On that date, a family member went to the residence located at 6450 Lakeview Circle Road only to discover the bodies of Jack Chandler, his wife Kay Chandler, and the couple's daughter, Tiffany Eichor. Law enforcement was summoned and the District 25 Violent Crime Task Force was activated. The family member that discovered the bodies reported to law enforcement that the family had been having problems with Tiffany's former boyfriend, Barry Titus. Investigation revealed that there were reports of Titus assaulting Tiffany on at least 2 previous occasions, and that felony charges were pending against him in relation to one of those assaults. Further, court records revealed that Tiffany had an active protective order against Titus. The attorney representing Titus in his felony case and his protective order case was Oklahoma City Attorney Keegan Harroz, who officers later learned was also the wife of Barry Titus. Officers learned that Harroz had a 2010 silver or light-colored Lexus sedan registered in her name. When processing the crime scene, officers discovered all 3 victims had been shot multiple times with at least 2 different caliber weapons. It appeared the perpetrators gained entry by kicking in the front door. Multiple shell casings were found at the scene, which were 5.56 caliber and 9mm. In further processing of the crime scene, it was discovered that the residence was equipped with a digital video surveillance system which recorded a portion of the events leading up to the homicides. The video revealed the perpetrators arrived in a light-colored vehicle and parked in the roadway to the southeast of the residence. 2 individuals exited the vehicle. One was obviously male and very tall, and the second individual much shorter and smaller than the first. The perpetrators approached on foot, and then the video stops. It was also determined the perpetrators pulled the electric meter prior to forcing entry into the residence. Investigators later examined the clock on the stove inside the residence, and once power was restored, they discovered that the power was disconnected at 3:04 a.m. Based on that information, investigators believe the murders occurred in close proximity to that time. The vehicle seen in the video is consistent with the car owned by Keegan Harroz. Investigators also discovered and collected a dark-colored ball cap near the area where the perpetrators parked their vehicle. That ball cap, as well as DNA swabs collected from numerous other items collected from the scene, were submitted to the OSBI lab for analysis. Investigators later received a notice that the DNA samples taken from the ball cap had been processed and a match was discovered in CODIS, Combined DNA Index System. The sample in the CODIS system was a known sample taken from Barry Titus II, while incarcerated in Colorado, and matched the DNA sample taken from the ball cap at the scene. Also, during the investigation, it was learned that in January of 2019, the sheriff's office responded to this address when the homeowners found a suspicious package of a powdery substance under the porch. The substance was seized by law enforcement and tested for controlled substances, which were negative. During the investigation of the homicides, it was discovered that one Jose Uribe, a defendant in a drug trafficking case in Oklahoma County, admitted that he planted this package. He explained that in an effort to obtain a lighter sentence, he had been attempting to work with law enforcement to provide information helpful to the prosecution. He advised that his attorney, none other than Keegan Harroz, approached him in January 2019 and asked him to plant what he believed to be methamphetamine at this residence. She explained this was an act of revenge because one of the individuals living at that residence had testified against one of her clients. She also instructed Uribe to contact his handler with the drug task force and advised him that drugs were being sold out of this house. As a result of this information, charges were filed on September 13th of 2019 in Okmulgee County against Ms. Harroz for witness intimidation. She was arrested on the same date. Those charges remain pending. On the same date, Ms. Harroz's brother, Jacoby Kelly, who lives in, I don't know how to say that, you guys, Sash, Texas, contacted local law enforcement and turned over an AR-15 rifle that he stated he had reason to believe had been used in the triple homicide in Beggs, Oklahoma. He refused to give any other information or cooperate any further. Officers seized this weapon and ultimately turned it over to the District 25 VCTF. An e-trace was conducted through the ATF, and it revealed the original purchaser of the rifle's receiver was identified. That witness lives in a rural area and has a shooting range on his property. The witness was interviewed and advised that he had purchased the receiver and built the rifle and had sold the rifle to Barry Titus and a female, with him later identified as Keegan Harroz, when they came to his property to look at the rifle. He further stated that during the negotiations, both Titus and Harroz fired the rifle. Once the transaction was completed, Harroz retrieved a second AR-15 from the vehicle that they arrived in, and both she and Titus fired the second rifle with the ammunition they had brought with them. The witness showed investigators where the rifles had been fired and told them no one had fired any other weapons in the area since that time. Officers collected shell casings from the area and found 2 different kinds of 5.56 ammunition. The shell casings were collected from the witness's property and submitted to the OSBI for analysis and comparison to the shell casings collected at the scene of the murders. It was determined that the shell casings fired from the rifle Keegan Harroz retrieved from the vehicle matched those shell casings seized from the crime scene. This was a very lengthy investigation that spanned numerous jurisdictions in both Oklahoma and Texas. Countless man-hours have been dedicated to this investigation, and I applaud the District 25 VCTF for their tireless efforts to bring this case to justice. As a result of those efforts, we have filed charges against Barry Roland Titus II and Keegan Harroz for the murders of Jack Chandler, Kay Chandler, and Tiffany Eichor. They will both be charged with 3 counts of premeditated murder and 1 count of burglary in the first degree. Arrest warrants were issued earlier today. Both are currently in federal custody, so these warrants will be served upon them while in jail. I understand this is a high-profile case and of great interest to many. However, it is a case that needs to be tried in a court of law and subject to the rules of evidence, not a court of a public opinion. The rules of professional responsibility limit the information I'm able to give out to those facts already a matter of public record. All other facts will be disclosed during the course of the prosecution in this matter. Which is why I say, everything we know is already crazy enough. Imagine what we're going to find out at the trial. Can you believe this case? Can you believe that a DV aggressor, someone so freaking sadistic and horrible, met this defense attorney and she fell for him? I mean, the story is unbelievable. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this and if you'd like me to cover the trial, if I can, when it happens. I hope it will be streamed, televised, all of that. And let's see, whenever that will be, we'll be ready for it because now we know what happened here. And I cannot imagine what Tiffany and Jack and Kay's family and friends are thinking and feeling. This is the worst possible outcome one can ever imagine. The abuse was already bad enough that Barry inflicted on Tiffany. And apparently she would leave her door open at night. It was like PTSD, of course. She was on high alert all the time, worried. What if he comes in here? What if he comes in here? You know, she was obviously protective of her parents. She slept with a light on and things like that. And still, look what happened. Her gut instinct was telling her something was very, very wrong. This guy was extremely bad and capable of the absolute worst. And you know what really sucks is that his defense attorney was the catalyst to all of that, to really set that all in motion. Because she really thought up a lot of these funny little plans, including hiring a private investigator to follow Tiffany around, to intimidate her, planting the baggie of fake drugs, powdered sugar under the porch, and then who knows what happened in between. I'm sure we'll find out at the trial. But then also to use her car to, have bought these weapons and everything and go there to murder Tiffany and her parents. The parents were, I believe, collateral damage. They really wanted to silence Tiffany so that she wouldn't be able to testify against Barry for the abuse that he inflicted on her, which is just horrible. They took her voice away. She wanted to speak up. She wanted to have justice for what she already suffered, and they just took her out, and her parents. That's just terrible. So if you like and share the video, just remember it's not because you like the topic. It's because you want more people to hear this message, to maybe learn from this case, to maybe share the DV distress signal and things like that. And I will continue to keep a close eye on this case and let you know if there's any other updates. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.